And we want people, we're in.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining in to another episode of
What is it? Black Money
Black Money
Matters.
Matters.
Oh, I'm excited about today's
I am
episode,
very
Jameca. We've
excited.
been waiting. We've been
Yes,
waiting.
yes, yes, yes. So, before we start, my name is Jameca. I am one of your hosts.
Karen Weaver. And we have a special guest with us today. Before we introduce her, I have to do a shout out.
Okay.
I have to do a shout out because if you liked our intro music, we had intro music
We
today
did.
and
We
we just
did.
got it. So if you like it, I want to let them know who did that for us. His name is Ken My Music Simpson.
Thank you,
Ken
Ken.
My Music Simpson did that intro piece for us. And I want to say thank you to him.
Thank you. We
Thank you
love it. We'll
so
be
much.
using it.
That's our
We'll be
that's our
using it. It's our
song now.
theme song, y'all.
But our guest today, and you know what? We've had this special guest before,
Mm-hmm.
Rhonda Grayer.
Mm-hmm.
She's the president. She's the CEO. She's the queen. How about that? Of what? Of WT
Mm-hmm.
Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's just really amazing. Thank you for coming on.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being
Thank
with
you.
us today. We appreciate it so much.
And I just want to say that it was so important that you came on during this month
Mm-hmm.
because this is National Women's History Month. And we'll get into it a little bit after you introduce yourself, but because of your role at WT Stevens and in this community. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And you know what? I'm going to say to add to that when we talk about it's Women's History Month. I mean, you're the you're over a construction company, second generation from the city of Flint, and you don't see many women in
Not at all.
construction, let alone women of color,
Mhm.
black women. And so, I mean, tell us about that. I mean, how did you just give us some information? I don't know if
Mhm.
for those that may not be from here that don't know who you are and what you all have done in this community. Talk to us about it.
Well, I'll start out by saying that after my dad passed in 2002, it became very passionate to me to it became very passionate to me that at his funeral, so many people stood up and said how he had helped them get their start and how he had provided them an opportunity, even though he was a very small business. And he actually started construction to be able to support his family, his 8 kids. And so I was so inspired when I heard the people have the praise and admiration for him for what he did for them, that it inspired me to want to do something similar.
So, when you were growing up, because that's what people would say, when you were growing up, did you think about being mayor? Which that wasn't something I had thought about. Did you think I'm going to go into construction? I mean, did you think that as a girl?
Oh, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I wanted to get as far away from the dirt as I could because that's what it looked like to me. I will say
Mhm.
that my brothers and sisters and I ran away from because we used to get dropped off to school in the dirty trucks, and we wanted to get as far away from those dirty trucks as we could,
Mhm.
so that I, find myself back here at finding myself back at that point, desiring to be a part of those dirty trucks that we
Mhm.
once upon a time ran away from and said that we never wanted to be involved with was, you know, uh, quite inspirational to me. And I didn't know the power that he had as an entrepreneur and the impact that he had on the lives that he was able to touch until that time. And that was quite the inspiration
You
for
know what?
me.
You are very humble, because one of the things I want people to know, I say it all the time. You, W.T. Stevens, what you all did for Flint, people need to know that really. When
Mhm.
we talk about the water and people coming to, I mean, uh, really coming to Flint's rescue
Mhm.
and helping to change those pipes, making sure that we had the fastest pipe replacement program that this country has seen was here in Flint. And you were part of that. Your company was part of that. And so we owe you a big debt of gratitude for
Mhm.
what you did. And I am going to say this and then I'm going to get off of it. Pay W.T. Stevens. I'm going to say it one time. No, twice. Pay W.T. Stevens because we do owe you.
Thank
I
you.
mean, and you represented us. I mean, Jameca, I would be traveling and
Mhm.
who would be there? W.T. Stevens, because
I
people all over
remember
the
being in
country were
DC.
watching you all. And when you would go up there, they were like, wow, it's a black woman over this. And did you get that response a lot? Because I know sometimes people didn't know that I was the mayor
Mhm.
and my chief of staff was Steve. And so some people would go up to him and start talking. I'm like, excuse me, it's me. I'm the mayor. And so how was that for you? Because you had to be in rooms where you were the only one.
Absolutely, and often. And I would say that, in the beginning, it was a little bit intimidating to,
Mhm.
be in a room with, all men and you're the only woman. But, you soon get used to it.
Mhm.
And it was such a privilege, for me to be able to take my father's legacy and, be able to create opportunities for, people, in the city of Flint.
Mhm.
I will say that what else was most gratifying for me, and I had no idea that uh, that it would be, was that as we, wrapped up our initial, 4 years in the program,
Mhm.
and during the pandemic, that we had people that, as a result of having worked for us, became entrepreneurs, first time entrepreneurs, went on to start businesses, went on to work for other municipalities because of the experience that they received from, their tenure
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
employment with WT Stevens. So,
Mhm.
to be able to, have that level of impact, in an area that where you typically don't see, many of us,
Right.
many people of color,
Mhm.
in, the underground utility or underground construction, you don't see many of us doing, this.
Especially.
Especially women. You just
Mhm.
don't see very many women. You don't see very many
But we
women
don't even
doing this.
encourage our girls
Right,
to
right,
go into those
Right.
kinds of areas.
right. And I'm heavy on that. But before because that's one of I'm real heavy on that. But I
Yes,
also want
yes.
to say that, and you mentioned it, that to see WT Stevens employ so many Flint residents and to hear their stories, to hear so many young men say,
Yeah.
I was able to support my family. I had this high paying job. I didn't want to turn to the streets anymore because I had something good. So I commend you for that, for that. But going to our girls, because I'm always saying, our girls are watching. They're watching us, and we don't encourage them to
No,
go.
I never thought to tell my girls, oh, you should go into construction.
Right, right,
Right.
I mean, it never crossed my mind.
Right.
right. Our girls are pushed into
Traditional.
traditionally women dominated
Exactly.
fields. And while that's fine, there's nothing wrong with being a nurse, with being a social worker. I'm a social
Absolutely.
worker. There's nothing wrong with that. But to be able to expose them, to be able to say, let me introduce you to this woman. She owns a construction company. You know, let me introduce you to this woman. She was the mayor. To be able to do that is phenomenal. And so my question for you is, um, what would you say to a young girl who said, that's kind of cool. I want to wear a hard hat to work.
I would say that we should, explore our options. My goal is for exposure, because oftentimes we don't know what we don't know,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So we think that, I'll say this for me, I thought that when I graduated from high school, there were no other opportunities for me except to go get a degree. And
Mhm.
so that's what I did.
Mhm.
And so, but the opportunity for men and women to make a living wage,
Yes.
with no education, because
Mhm.
everybody can't afford college.
And
Some
it's
people,
not for
it's not
everybody.
for
Yeah.
And
everybody.
it's
Some
college
people
isn't
are.
for everybody.
Absolutely. This is one of those places where you can make a living wage, man and woman. and not have to spend, $50,000, $100,000,
Mhm.
on your education.
And that is what stood out,
Mhm.
because we would hear people talk about that. I remember one of the guys said when he saw his first check, he was so excited. I mean, he was just like, I can't believe this. Did you all see your check? I mean, because they were proud. They were so proud. And so these are areas that we do need to encourage young
Encourage.
people to go to. So what do you do? I mean, is it hard to find people for your work? I mean, because I know you all, we had done that apprentice training also. You all
Mhm.
were training people
Yes.
because it wasn't something you were getting out of school anymore.
Right. Right. Well, I will tell you that, one of the things that's really important is to become a trainer. So, that's one of the things, that's one of my, goals, is to, start to be able to train, you know, uh, people in this industry.
Mhm.
I'm not quite there yet, but that is, one of my goals is to train and expose. Right.
S- So I wanted to talk about something because I remember when all of that was going on, all of the pipe replacement, all of the restoration, all of the companies. I mean, you all were the only black company. You all were the only, yeah, I mean,
Mm,
you were. And that's
absolutely.
just what it was. And so why is that that we don't have more companies going into, I mean, where are the blacks? Where are the black companies? And what happens that keeps us out?
Well, I think that it's first of all, I want to say that, it's not easy.
Mhm.
And, sometimes we don't know the possibilities.
Mhm.
So, so what's important for I'll use this as an example. When you are in high school and you're trying to decide what career you want to, go into, you'll do some research. You'll see how much money you can make. You'll see
Mhm.
what opportunities exist. I don't think we see this as an opportunity, so we don't do our homework. We don't do our research. We don't see our possibilities.
Mhm.
So we don't know how to, find the training if there is any. That's why it's so important to have those possibilities right here in this community.
Mhm.
And so I think that, exposure on every level, whether it's entrepreneurship
Oh,
or workforce development, yeah, I think exposure is the key.
So
so
what are oh
go ahead. I'll
I
read this question after.
okay, so what, as a business owner, a minority business owner in a field that's untraditional to minority business owners, especially women, what are three like key tips, three tips that you would give to someone else either looking to go into your line of work or already in your line of work, that isn't just something that you just learn, not the typical things.
I would say, I think it's, explore is the one thing that I would say. I would say that make sure that you keep your credit good, because
Ooh.
that's your ability to purchase the equipment that you need. That's the ability to get the bonding that you need. That's your ability to be successful, is to make sure that you keep your credit intact.
Oh my goodness, it's like
And it's not something that you do, in my opinion, off the cuff. It's something that
Mhm.
you plan for. So
mhm,
you plan to have good credit,
mhm,
so
Mhm.
you do the things that are necessary
mhm,
to get you there, so that when you get ready to make your purchase of whatever equipment that you need, or whatever working capital that you need, you have the credit that's necessary to get what you need. There is a lot of money out there right now.
Mhm.
So, and it's more accessible to us as women of color and people of color than has ever been in the history of this country.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to, make sure that you are, taking care of your credit, so that, you can
We
walk
just
through
talked
when,
about
as a
that.
door is open,
Mhm.
at this time the door is open, and how do you walk through that door?
I was just gonna say Bill Cobb was just talking about that
Right. We were talking
on the
about credit
show
cards before.
on the
That was what
previous
he was
show.
talking
Yeah.
about, and financial literacy and how we're not
Absolutely.
teaching that, and
Absolutely.
how we get in trouble as a
Right.
result of that.
Yeah.
And that's what you come right in
Right
and
in.
talk
So
about.
Yeah.
it just shows, you
Yeah.
know,
And look for mentorship because it's there. You
Mhm.
know, people will, often, answer more questions than you would ever think they would. People will, give you advice. And I know that that's, for me, as I was starting out, that's one of the things that I didn't feel that I had because my industry was, didn't have people who looked like me that I thought that I could approach and
Mhm.
ask questions of or ask advice of. But,
Mhm.
that is, starting to diminish. I belong to an organization, of course, called the National Association of
Right.
Black Women in Construction. And one of the things that we can do for each other is if I don't have the answer to something, I can have 3 or 4 people that I can get on the phone and call. And if they don't have the answer, they can work to get the answer.
And I'm glad to hear you have that kind of group because it's a support group, and that's one of the things. I mean, it for me at least, it was difficult being a woman in leadership and not having that kind of support, especially from other women.
Absolutely.
It's like we don't support each other enough, and we don't lift each other up enough and say, what can I do to help you and not hurt you? And so I'm glad that's something in place. So are you looking to mentor some little girls in that
I
area, or what do you think?
I am open.
Uh-huh.
I have a few people that call me to ask me questions all the time to ask me how they get started
Mm-hmm.
or what should they do as a next step, and I'm definitely open to
That's a good question.
giving that advice.
I'm looking
I'm
at this.
getting at least
It was,
comments.
did people give your husband more credit than you?
I you know yeah, I think they did.
Mhm.
I think they did.
Yeah, because that's who they go to first.
Yeah.
That's who they go to. I mean, and like I said, how people would go to, they think my chief of staff sometimes was the mayor, and they go to him, and I'm thinking, I mean, it's just an ingrained, built-in assumption
Mhm.
that is made. So, how did you handle that?
I consider myself to be a pretty humble person. I have, I just want to get the work.
Oh,
I just want to get the work done,
Mhm.
and to make sure that we are answering the call that God has given us, because it was certainly. I will say this, that I give the glory to
mm-hmm.
Him, as we were approaching the water lines. One of the things that uh, he whispered to me was to to stay humble, and
Mm-hmm.
this is about me using you as a conduit to
Mm-hmm.
be a blessing to other people, and so I just can try to continually keep that in the forefront.
So, I read this article called
That's
Quiet
wonderful.
Greatness. And it said, quiet greatness is the silent killer of women's careers that we're not talking enough about. And how, men have an easier time as far as talking about their accomplishments and, talking about what they've been able to achieve and what they've done. And women, we don't do that. We don't blow our own horn. We don't like to say, well, I was able to do this, this, and this. And so that's why I said she's being very humble. Let me tell you what she's done. And we
Mhm.
look for others to do that. And you've got a resume. And I just thought this was
It,
interesting that they
it
noticed this
is.
was
It
with
is.
women.
But when we toot our own horn, what
What
happens?
happens? We get talked
We
about.
get talked about. Who does she think she is?
Right. And that happens
She thinks
from,
she all of
right.
that.
And it usually happens from other women.
Yes.
It happens from other women when we do that. And I mean, and
Which
that
is
was a
why mentorship
conversation.
is so important. I think it's important that we install into our younger women that are coming up, like, it's okay to be great. Let me help you.
Right.
There's room for
Well,
all of us.
isn't that a conversation we had? Remember, we were having this conversation about walking through doors and how you want to
Mhm.
bust down doors for others. And then we said, you know what? My legs are tired from
I'm
kicking
tired of
doors
busting
in.
down the doors. I
What
want to
would
walk
you say? You
in quietly.
I said, and
I'm
Rhonda said, I want to
aggressive.
walk in. I want to walk through a door
Absolutely.
where they want me. I mean, because we
Mhm.
have been busting down doors, and I appreciate those that came before me and did that. And I hope
Absolutely.
that I did that for some people too. But now I'm at the point where it's like, Okay, I want to help you. Let me bring you along to come through the
Right.
door.
Right.
And a lot of
And I
times we
want
don't
you to
Absolutely.
do
be
it.
able to just walk in.
Right.
Just
Absolutely.
walk in.
Right.
We
We're
walk
always
in.
fighting and busting things down,
Absolutely.
especially as women,
Absolutely.
when we're in those roles. And so we need to, I mean, have a sister. We need to have more of a sisterhood.
Mhm.
And we need to
Absolutely.
have us coming together to have these
Mhm.
conversations and stop dogging each other out.
And just to help all of us understand that your gift will make room for you. We don't
Absolutely.
have to be in competition.
We're supposed to
We
be.
supporting.
Well, I
collaborating.
remember it was these two mayors. It was the mayor from New Orleans and from Baton Rouge. And people asked them about competition. And they said, we're not in competition. We're here to complement each other.
Mhm.
We're two
Absolutely.
sisters doing something. So we're not competing, we're complementing. And that's what we need to be about
Absolutely.
if we want to be able to,
Mhm.
get that job done and bring others along.
Absolutely.
So that's what
Absolutely.
I was thinking about. That's what, and I remember.
So we'll toot your horn.
We'll toot your horn
Thank
for
you.
you, because I mean, really, it's just so impressive. I remember seeing you at the Congressional Black Caucus. People were having
I
you come
remember
when
that.
Tom Joyner came, and I know I've said this before. Who they want to see? They wanted to see W.T. Stevens, because
I remember, was it at the Congressional Black Caucus that somebody said, "Where's that black woman that owns
yes,
the construction company? I want to
yes,
meet her."
yeah. And people wanted to see you all, and
Mhm.
because that was such a story and a testament to what is
Mhm.
possible
Absolutely.
and what we can do. But people need to know it, because when you don't see it, you don't think about it.
Right.
Or can I do that? And how do
Right.
I do that? Who can I talk with?
Absolutely.
So I just remember us having that kind of conversation. So I'm gonna put my little article back, but it was
I want to read
Quiet
that article,
Greatness,
too.
the silent killer of women's careers. We're not talking about
Send me that
enough.
link.
I will.
So I mean, going back to being
It was in Essence magazine.
a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
I forgot my question because I was about to say something about Essence. Um, so what would you have liked to see happen for you when you first started out, when you first took over the business?
Well, I would have liked to have, had somebody that, I could, talk to, somebody
Mm-hmm.
that I could, ask questions of,
Mm-hmm.
or somebody that I could call up and just say, hey, how do I do this or how do I do that? And, it felt like a really lonely place,
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning.
When did that start to change?
I think that started to change. It took me maybe about 7 to 10 years. And the more I learned, the more I was in the room, the more confident I became.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the more I asked questions of God, the more I took his direction. It just became, it will happen when it is time to
Mm-hmm.
happen. And I think that, for me, a pivotal time was the water crisis.
Mm-hmm.
It took what we had already had within us, which was the experience to do demolition and excavation,
Mm-hmm.
and it gave us we pivoted very easily, into the water line replacements. And so it was just the timing. And I think that that's a possibility for every black woman or woman, because we're at a time right now where you know the women not being in a lot of different places or having a lot of different exposure or opportunities are is in the limelight. And
Mm-hmm.
so it is a time right now where there are many doors that are open for us, and what we need to do is to continue to talk about it so that young girls will know that this is that time and you can be whatever you want to be, and it's nothing is too difficult, and maybe you're the first to do it,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're the second to do it, and that is absolutely possible.
So you feel like this is the time of the woman.
Absolutely.
This is our season.
Absolutely, I do.
Okay,
That's
so
good to
I'm
hear,
I'm
too.
looking at some of these comments. Now, this was, I guess, when I was talking about why we don't have as many minority companies out there that you all were that on that company during that time. And let's see, who is this? Eddie said unions keep blacks out in the past. Not sure about that today.
Uh, I I would. I'm not sure that it is necessarily intentional,
Mm-hmm.
but I do believe that there are fewer of us in unions
Okay.
uh, than probably should be,
Mm-hmm.
because that is where currently you get the training to do the type of work that we're doing right now, and
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see more people of color
Mm-hmm.
in the unions.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Eddie. There's your answer. He said he wasn't sure about today, but okay. So what's been the biggest challenge or barrier for you? And I mean, well, we can talk about for you as a woman over the construction company and just over it in general. What's been a barrier? What's been hard?
I think that it was really hard early on to feel included,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, um, like I was really part of, the industry, and really, appreciated in the
Mm-hmm.
industry, and it's
Hmm.
when you gain that quiet confidence, you'll learn where you need to go to be a part of, and what you need to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So
So how do you feel now?
I feel awesome now.
Have you had that moment or a moment or a similar moment where you're in the room and you're the only black woman and another one walks in and you're like,
Yes.
that moment. Tell us about that. Like, how
You
did
know,
you
I
feel?
I I that is a very refreshing moment,
Mm-hmm.
because you instantly feel like I'm not the only one,
Mm-hmm.
and you always feel like when you see someone who looks like you, that you can have that quiet conversation,
Yeah.
and not be
That look.
judged, might not be judged on what you might ask or what you might
Mm-hmm.
say.
Mm-hmm.
So
And that's why it's important for us to be at all these different tables. You made me think. I remember even being in graduate school, Jameca, and at Michigan State, and all of the instructors were white instructors. And Dozier Thornton walked in, and I was like, I mean, I was just and this was a black male. And when he was my instructor, I felt so good. I was like, yes, because I felt like I did have somebody to talk to, and he really helped get me through. Was having him there. So yeah, it does. It makes you.
it does makes a
Mm-hmm.
difference.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Yeah, and I do have a question. I had some questions too. Because and we did talk about this some, but I'm trying to figure out when we were talking about mentoring. I still, when I hear about career days and things, I don't see us. I want Rhonda Greer at career day, letting
Letting the
girls
third
know.
and fourth grade girls
No,
know
right.
while
You
they're
can do this. This is a great job for you. And I mean it because there were some women. You all had some women that were working with WT Stevens as well that were out there on those streets
Yes.
doing some of that work. And I remember seeing that. And they were just as excited and just as proud and just as happy as those men that were out there working because they knew that the wages they were getting, I mean, they were making good. Let's talk about the salaries. Let's talk about some of those salaries because that was one of the things they said was I don't have to have two jobs. I can take care of my family with this kind of job and this kind of income. And a lot of times people don't know that.
Mhm.
They don't know it.
Yeah, so a lot of the jobs that we work on are Davis Bacon or prevailing wage,
Okay.
which means that the federal government dictates how much we pay,
Mhm.
certain job classifications.
Mhm.
So our people would make somewhere between 20 to 40, 37, 38, $39 an
Mhm.
hour. So the lowest paid person probably made $20 an hour.
Mhm. That was the
So
lowest.
yeah,
the lowest.
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it went up,
Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
went up.
Absolutely.
I do have a I have a question. This might be a hard one, but you know what? One of the things we bragged about, and I still brag about that, even though I said in 2016, this should have happened a long time ago for you all to be the first Black company to get a multi-million-dollar contract. Was there jealousy out there? Do you think that impacted some of the things that went on with you? Because people would hear that, and then all of a sudden, instead of being happy for you, they're angry with you. You know, why? Who did you know? Why'd they get that? And it's like, why not?
Yeah, and I think it comes from, lack of, understanding as
Mm-hmm.
well that, the this just because you might be on a multi-million dollar contract doesn't mean you put a multi-million dollars in your pocket,
Right.
right?
You're paying
Right.
people, you're buying equipment, you're doing
Equipment,
those
So,
people,
things.
you're
so
paying
Right.
health
yeah.
insurance,
So
all kinds
Right.
oftentimes
of
people
stuff.
don't,
They don't look at
they
the
don't see
payroll
that,
that you
right?
have.
Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And so I just wondered about that because
Yeah.
sometimes you would hear, you know, like a little undercurrent
Mm-hmm.
about that. And it's like
Yes.
they're paying, you know, you're paying
Yes.
people and people think you get all that money and you just
Right.
get to put it up. And you're really trying to build a business
Right.
and
And
employ more people.
right. And additionally, when you are training people, it costs you more money. That
Mm-hmm.
impacts your bottom line, your profit margins.
Mm-hmm.
When you are hiring people that you have to train as opposed to hiring people that are already skilled.
Right.
So, we do pay a price when we have people that we train, people that we, bring off the streets and give an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you all did that, but it was hard for us to find enough people with all of the skills that were necessary to be able to do the job. And so putting that kind of program in place was important.
Mhm.
I said, and it was important to get the job done and to the success
Mhm.
that we witnessed with you all out there in getting that job done. You know, in getting that job done. So I don't know, I just thought we should touch on that.
All right.
I just thought we needed to touch on that. So I don't know. I don't know. And I'm glad you're giving us this chance to have that conversation and explain that part of it. Explain that part of it.
Yeah, I think it's really important for us to have these kind of conversations because if we're not, oftentimes what our kitchen table isn't our kitchen table because you've got parents that are working. So we're not
Mm-hmm.
sitting around the kitchen table in the traditional sense talking
Mm-hmm.
about, the opportunities that exist for our children. And so when we have these kind of conversations that people can hear about, it is also exposure when you can see people that are doing things that are different from what you might have been exposed to in your life as a young adult or a high school student, then that also gives you, you can see options for
Mm-hmm.
yourself, right?
So I want to come and work for you. What do I have to do?
So
I'm in high school and I've heard about you all. And I've heard about these good jobs. What do I do?
So, oftentimes, it would depend on, we're a small company, so
Mm-hmm.
we bid projects. So as we win projects, we hire and we love to keep the people that we have because we also have trained them.
Right.
But, we like to bring, a few new people in to do on the job training so that, we can expose them to more of what we're doing. And, we have partnered with several nonprofit programs where they will, like Metro Youth Build, where they
Mm-hmm.
teach the young people, some soft skills, like, how to get to work on time, how, work etiquette. And then, we kind of take them from there and they expose them to, what we do. And, some of them make it and some of them don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely encourage those kind of programs. We also have worked with Michigan Works where they will give the young person a chance to come in, work with us. They will share in the cost of that employee. And if it works out, wonderful. If it's not something that they want to do, then we haven't spent all of our money because Michigan Works has incurred the cost of some portion of that employee's salary.
Oh, here's another question. Okay, Harold, I'm going to ask this question. Can you ask Rhonda, is she naturally a very shy person?
Am I?
Are you shy?
I think so.
Okay,
No, I think that that's important though, because most of the time shy people may be a little introverted, and people think that you have to be really extroverted to run a business. You Because you're the face of the company, you're
Right.
out talking to people, so they think that you have to be extroverted. And so people who are introverted sometimes think I can't do it.
Right. Yeah. I will say that, I used to, not, the Flint project was very high profile, far too high
Yes.
profile for me as a shy person. But, as you know, in my quiet confidence, I became okay with, speaking about, my experience. And so I'll say that, yeah, I am a shy person, but I'm definitely open to having the conversation
Mm-hmm.
about, what God has given me, first of all, and the lives that I have impacted.
And well, people were clamoring for you anyway. Like I
Mhm.
said, when I'd be someplace and I'd look up and I'm like, oh, okay, and I would be, I mean, I would be happy to see you all at the different events that I was at. It made me feel good, and I'd see them sitting out there, and so then I could really, talk firsthand about, well, there they are right there, and she's the president, and this is what they were able to do and accomplish, for the city of Flint. So I was always happy when I saw you out there. But yeah, so she's shy. Oh, Melissa said, "Thank you so much for coming back to fix our pipes." Ooh, and that
You're
says a
welcome.
lot for you looking past certain people. Says Neely on here. That's what it says. I'm just
You're
ooh.
welcome.
She said you're welcome. And we do owe you thanks because you did come back. You came back a second time to
I'm
help.
not getting on.
So you must love Flint.
I do. I do.
And so yeah, you have to.
And have a passion for the work.
Mhm.
I do.
And again, our girls and our boys are watching and knowing and seeing a different feel that we don't. I mean, we all grow up seeing people doing construction work, and you know about it, but you never think that's something I can do. I
Mhm.
can do that work,
And
or
Absolutely.
I'll
I
tell
can own
yeah.
that company.
And you know what I like too, is when you walk in, she walks in and she's elegant and
Mm-hmm.
graceful and beautiful. And I mean, people have this conception, a preconceived notion of if you're a woman in construction, here's what you know, here's how you
Be
portray
Right.
yourself,
boisterous
and then you walk in, and people see that, and so I like that.
Karma Lewis said, "Hooray for the introverts."
That's right, Karma. Hooray for the introverts. So no, people are glad to see you and have you
You know
here.
what's funny?
What?
I don't think people realize that you're shy too.
I thank you, Jameca. I know Mickey's not laughing.
No, she's shy for real.
I am. To see,
And people don't know. I know it because I'm
look,
around you a lot. But I think that other people don't really
you don't think
realize
so?
it.
We have people in the studio audience that don't believe that.
They-
I don't know. See, I just
well,
fooled them.
maybe, okay. Well, maybe I just
I'm
see
I
a
am a
different
quiet,
side
shy kind
sometimes.
of person, But
I'm not saying you don't say what's on your mind, but I think you're a little shy sometimes.
hooray for the introverts again. But I have a question because you're second generation.
Mhm.
Do you have people in your family? Is this going to be third generation?
We do. We
Okay.
do. We have, I think I now currently have 5 nephews that are
Wow.
working and have a skill in what we do.
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 directional drillers.
Okay.
So yes, so I do.
Yeah, I don't know what a directional driller is,
Oh,
but
I'm sorry. That's the trenchless drilling that
Okay.
that is typically required, today in these water line replacement projects. So,
oh, okay. So I understand that.
okay,
Okay, because that was one of the things that we had talked about before we got this project started, was that was the
Correct.
way that we wanted to go.
Right.
Okay, okay. So this will be third generation.
Yes.
W.T. Stevens, third generation. Where are you located?
We are currently located in Flint,
Mm-hmm.
and we also have an office in Detroit.
Okay.
So we are looking to expand
Mm-hmm.
our services. So we are excited about the infrastructure dollars that are currently in the market, and we are hoping to be
You know,
able
those
to.
infrastructure dollars are in the market because of Flint.
No, I didn't.
They are. I remember Maxine Waters told me that
Mm.
when I was in DC one time. She said, "We're putting together." I didn't even believe it. She said, "We're putting together an infrastructure bill, and it's because of Flint."
Mm.
And then when it finally happened, I was about ready to cry. It almost brought tears to my eyes. I said, "Wow!" I mean, I remember hearing it, and then to see it happen,
Mhm.
and now for but how do we benefit from that? How do we benefit from it?
So, so there are so many organizations and entities looking to get minorities and
Mhm.
disadvantaged businesses involved, uh, from the U.S. Department of Transportation to the Michigan Department of Transportation to the aviation industry. Everybody is looking to get minorities into uh, areas where there has not typically been open access for them.
Mhm.
So I only know this because being a member of the Association of Black Women in Construction, they often are coming to us saying that how do we expose what we have and the opportunities that's in our organization to people who look like you.
Mhm.
So the opportunities are there, and so the question becomes, how do we do a better job of exposing
Mhm.
our people to those opportunities?
And we do. We need to do a better job of exposing them to those opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
It needs
Mhm.
to become kitchen table talk, but how do
It
we get
does.
it to the kitchen table?
It
So what should we be
does. How do
doing? I
we get
mean,
it to the kitchen table? Yeah.
I don't I don't know. But we're
I
well
think
having
having
these
conversations
kinds of
like this,
conversations
yeah,
and having more of these I
yeah,
think is really
having
really
more of these,
important.
asking
Absolutely.
questions, challenging people, seeking out mentors, offering to be mentors, all of
Mhm.
that,
Hmm.
all of
Mhm.
that.
Absolutely.
Making sure that our kids know what's out there, making sure that our businesses know, that we tell each other, hey, it's an opportunity over here.
And really making sure really at the local level and at these levels of government too,
Mm-hmm.
that minority businesses have an opportunity to bid
Hmm.
on what is there. We have to have make sure those kinds of things
Yes.
take place, and
Mm-hmm.
that's incumbent on us as citizens to do that, as residents to do that, and say what
Mm-hmm.
do you have in place when these kinds of bids are going to be happening. Because sometimes I have seen where they put some outlandish crazy things in bids that are so unnecessary
Hmm.
for the job to be done. I remember being at a meeting in the library in the basement, and some of the companies, the minority companies, said this is written to keep us out.
Hmm.
It's written to keep us out, and they walked out. They walked out,
Hmm.
and so we have to look at why is this in that bid.
And what can we do when we say they're writing these bids in a way to keep us out? How can collectively we make sure that this
Right,
continues?
because I mean, even when it comes to the equipment, it's like a lot of people don't own that piece of
Right.
equipment, but you
Right.
lease it.
Right.
And so when it's written that you have to have certain
Right.
things, and it's like, well, that doesn't even make sense. So,
Absolutely.
but people don't know to challenge that
Mhm.
either.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And sometimes it's well, this is how this has always been written up, and they put it out the way it's always been written up.
Hmm.
And we need to look at those things because as elected people, we can do better jobs
Right.
when it comes to making sure that local businesses, minority businesses, have access to these, to the bids that are
Right.
coming out.
Absolutely.
And so
But I think it's also incumbent upon the agencies to work as hard as they have worked to
Mhm.
keep us out, to exclude us, to work twice as hard to include us. So how can I be inclusive? What can
Mhm.
I do differently that will, draw people of color, to this organization,
Mhm.
or companies or entrepreneurs of color to this organization?
Mhm.
Because oftentimes, as a small business owner, we wear multiple hats.
Mhm.
We
Right.
don't have a marketing department, or we don't have a separate estimating department.
Mhm.
So, you might have 3 or 4 people wearing hats. So you choose the bids that you are likely to win. So you
Mhm.
don't just pick up the pay, you don't bid everything that you see.
Mhm.
So but when people are working to include you, that's a reason to bid. That's a
Mhm.
reason to take a second look at it.
Mhm.
So learning how to, but the voices of the people in power, talking about and mandating inclusion and
Right.
how to be inclusive is important. So you can't become inclusive if you have $1 million project and it's in multiple phases, and you make me pay $1 million bond up front when you can, like the Flint Waterline project did, you can do what I call incremental bonding,
Right.
so that you bond the
Exactly.
portion of the work that you're going to be working on in
Mhm.
the, let's say the next 30 days or the next 45 or 60 days or what have you,
Mhm.
which makes it easier for someone like me to bid on a project.
You've got some comments and questions, and Karma's right. She said we must form relationships with one another, making it easier to know best ways to support. But Jasmine said, "Hey, Rhonda, what would you say is the greatest challenge small businesses are facing in 2023?"
I would say that, and I hope this doesn't appear negative, but everyone that says they want to be inclusive doesn't want to be inclusive. And I would say that we find those places and those agencies that really want to be inclusive. And
Mhm.
I will say that they are out there. I
Mhm.
mean, I have been in meetings where when somebody truly wants to be inclusive, because when you do, you find ways and you find solutions
Mhm.
to make this opportunity more attractive for people of color, right?
Mhm.
And so you'll
Mhm.
find more of us in the room and more of us asking questions and more of us being interested in really, doing business with you.
Mhm. Have you found that easier in other where, I mean, because you've been in a lot of different places.
Mhm.
Where do they have that going really well? Or
I would say that, just through my association
Mhm.
with my organization, that it has, been very insightful. And so one of the places that I consider to be more inclusive, it's Palm Beach County, Florida.
Okay.
They actually mandate inclusion.
Oh, okay.
So, you see people of not just, when I say people of color, I mean,
All.
all people of
Mhm.
color. You see them, being included at a higher rate, and they're not, kicking down doors, doors are being opened for them. And
Mhm.
those that have the capacity to walk through are able to walk through.
Okay. So where was that again? In Florida?
Mhm.
Mhm. So we could do a better job here.
I absolutely,
We
I
could
think
we could
so.
do a better job here.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Because
Absolutely.
otherwise it wouldn't have taken until 2016 for what
Absolutely.
happened with W.T. Stevens to have happened. And I always say, yeah, I was proud of that. I was excited, but I mean, really, it's 2016, and
Right.
it's taken all of this
Mhm.
time,
Mhm.
and I don't know that we've seen that happen again.
Mhm.
And so we can do a better job
Mhm.
right here. We can do a better job right here. And
Absolutely.
I know we've got just a few more minutes. Is there anything, Rhonda, that we haven't asked you about or talked about that you think is important to get out there?
Not really. I think this has been a very good conversation and a very robust conversation. I'm
Mm-hmm.
so glad to hear this conversation, and actually, I'd love to, bring some members of my organization, back to have this very
Ooh, that'd be
conversation.
That would
nice.
be
So,
wonderful.
because I do underground construction, many members of my organization do other things, and it would
Mhm.
be really nice to just to have a conversation with women just
That's what
in
I was
this
gonna say. I'd like to hear
I
some
would
women
in
talking
love
about that.
in
that.
this industry. I think it would be just awesome,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that I think we covered a lot. I think we
Mm-hmm.
covered some important things, but that's one of the things that I really do think is important, is that giving voice to you know uh women in the
Right.
industry.
Women in the industry.
And
And
so
yeah.
shows like this give voice
And I
to
do. I mean, and we have to have a place as women to be able to come together and have these kinds of conversations and talk about how do we support each other.
absolutely.
You know, there's enough people and enough barriers that are keeping women out of things and out of
Mhm.
places. And you have enough shows where women are always fighting with each other and
Mhm.
calling each other names and
Absolutely.
Throwing
just not
drinks.
not lifting each other up.
Mhm.
And I don't know, we need to be past that.
Mhm.
We need to be
Absolutely.
past that. We need to come together and
Absolutely.
like you said, support each other. And I mean, are there any other black women black women construction companies here? I know there's one in Saginaw.
I don't.
No. Okay, the
I'm
answer
sorry.
is no. The
I
answer
don't
is
know.
no. Okay, I do know there's one in Saginaw, but I mean, so we got to do something. I mean, we've got to do something about getting some more young girls to be
Absolutely.
Rhonda
Seated.
Grayers.
Yep.
We really do.
Yep.
And I want to talk about some of the other jobs that are associated because there are a lot of jobs
Mhm.
that are associated with the business.
Mhm.
Everything isn't out there
Right.
on the streets. You have inside things that, I mean, because you still got to take care of the day-to-day operations
Mhm.
in the
Absolutely.
business to make it successful. And so sometimes we don't think about those jobs as well. So I do. I want to have that
Can't wait to
conversation
have you come back
with those
Can't wait.
women.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So
Or maybe, where are they? Are they in Detroit?
there are some in
There-
Detroit. I will be.
I mean, if we have to go on
Yeah.
location someplace,
Yes.
we like doing that too.
Yes. Yes. I think that would be awesome and
Mhm.
exciting.
I do too.
Absolutely.
I do too.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
joining
And
us.
and you know what, Mickey? Before we leave, I know you're gonna go off with our music out because I want people. I want people. Wait,
Wait,
hold
on.
Look, Mickey's gonna. No, well, it's not time, but I just want to shout his name out again because this is our first time using it, and it's Ken, My Music Simpson,
Thank
that
you,
put this
Ken.
together
My Music
for us.
Simpson.
And you know how I met him? I came. We had Philip Loving on here, and that's who hooked me up with him.
Oh,
And so he said, "I got something for you all,"
yeah, so
and
we
this is what it
see-
was. And so
amazing.
this is why, this is just important as
Mhm.
far as, I met somebody new and turning our dollars over in
Mhm.
our community.
Mhm.
And you all did such a wonderful job of turning dollars over in our community and hiring from this community people from Flint, giving people second chances
Mhm.
out of prison. I mean, it was wonderful to see that. And you did it. And you did it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Yeah,
we
I'm
honor
glad you came on.
Very welcome.
We love you. Thank you.
All right.
And thank you guys.
And she'll be back.
She'll be back. Thank you guys for tuning in
Yeah.
to another episode
Black
of
Money
Black
Matters.
Money Matters.
Have a good one,
Have a
everybody.
good one.